All right, welcome to round 2. We are on the play, and this hand looks reasonable. It's land light, obviously, but we do have shadow and some interaction in Thoughtseize, so I'm going to go ahead and keep. We do also have Street Wraith to potentially find us some additional things. I guess with double Thoughtseize, what would change my play here? I guess even if I drew a fetch land, I might want to fetch instead of shock, just so I could pay more life up front for the shadow's sake. If I drew like back-to-back fetch lands. So we'll go ahead and fetch here first. Grab this Overgrown Tomb and Thoughtseize. All right, looks like the another company deck here, but the counters company deck in this case, or Vizier Company, or Devoted Company, or whatever you want to call the deck. A little bit of a slow hand, where we're going to try and deal with most of their creatures here. I could just take Company and Ewit, which I am most inclined to do, I believe. That puts me at a little bit at risk of my opponent drawing Devoted Druid, but I do have this Gate Command to deal with it as well. I'm just going to take the Ewit to start with. Court of Calling is the card I am least likely to take, as I can make it particularly awkward if we take most other things and kill the other things. All right, nothing on one here, so we're just going to go Thoughtseize into Shadow. So they drew another Court of Calling. So I'm going to take the company, excuse me. This puts me slightly at risk. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should just take the Vizier. Maybe I'm being greedy. I'm putting myself slightly at risk if I take the company. My opponent could just draw Devoted Druid, play Devoted Druid, and then I could miss my land drop. I think asking for both of those things is... I think losing to both of those things happening is okay, though. So I'm going to take the company here. Next turn, if I draw a land, I can just K-Command Vizier or Druid if they happen to draw it. But again, if they draw exactly Devoted Druid and I miss, then I could lose here. Or I would lose here, rather. But that did not happen in either case. So I think I give my opponent the opportunity to block, which I'm relatively certain they will decline. Okay, they do decline. This line is not particularly good. You know what I should have done? I made a mistake this turn. I was assuming I wanted my opponent to discard a card, but I should have returned my Street Wraith in combat there. I should have returned Street Wraith and killed the Vizier. So instead, I'm going to have my opponent discard a card, which is not very relevant. They're going to discard their redundant chord, which isn't even really particularly good anyway at this stage of the game. So yeah, I should have returned Street Wraith with this in combat, cycled Street Wraith, so I would get a little more damage in, put my opponent on a quicker clock. Actually, the clock would be, yeah, it would be slightly quicker if I never draw another land. I guess I could even use this for a fetch the following turn. I would have got in for 8 here. My shadow would be an 8/8. My opponent would be at 12. So I guess the clock would not have changed. But either way, I think that would still be slightly better. Just my opponent discarding a card is unlikely to matter here. Kitchen Finks is a good draw. It'll be a road bump for a little while. So I think we're just going to go to combat here. Before we do anything. My opponent doesn't block, so I think we're going to want to cycle one of these Street Wraiths. I have to be careful here. If they have like... if they're not playing just green-white, if they're playing Abzan and then they like play land, Vizier, Chord for Viscera Seer, they could gain infinite here. Tarfire the draw. Well, that certainly insulates me from that. I don't think I particularly have any reason that I need to Tarfire right now. Let's go ahead and traverse for a shadow, play a shadow, and say go, I believe. My opponent's likely going to be the one who's first to act, considering the situation, since they are just dead on board at the moment. Playing a Vizier is exactly what they needed. So if they have Viscera Seer, the problem with Vizier, sorry, they've discarded one of their chords. So their only card is chord now. The problem with the Vizier is that certainly that's what I would rather Tarfire than the Kitchen Finks, but if my opponent does have Viscera Seer, I'm going to be the one who's required to act first. I guess not. I guess I can let my opponent block, because they'll have to act first. Yeah, I guess this is fine. Because I could just let them block, and then while this was in the yard, Tarfire this. So I want to kill the Viscera Seer, not this, while this is in the yard, so that my opponent dies next turn. If I kill Kitchen Finks right now, they don't die next turn. So this should be it. Unless I'm making some egregious mistake, which is possible. Yeah. Okay. Brutality is outstanding in this matchup. So we definitely want that. We certainly want this push. As much removal as possible is a good thing. It's hard to find room for things like these when I'm just trying to tax my opponent's creatures. Obviously, my opponent has Eternal Witness and Kitchen Finks, so it's not like graveyard interaction is a bad idea. It's just hard to find room when I start cutting. And I'll show you what I mean here. Liliana, we definitely are happy to see go. At that point, there is just not a card in my deck that I actively do not like. I want to kind of shred my opponent's resources by just continuously killing their things. Or, you know, and discard spells help me in that regard because they allow me to line my cards up with theirs. So at this point, the best thing I can start doing is cutting my more inefficient removal, whether that be like, you know, my 2-mana removal or my Lilianas or whatever. But even cards like that are quite good, and it just leaves me with not having any room for stuff like Surgical and Spellbomb, which could be a mistake. And I'm willing to be open to that possibility, but I do not think it is. Could side out a land here since I'm not bothering with the splash. If I do, though, it almost certainly compels me to shave even more on 3-drops. I've only cut 1 3-drop so far. I definitely can't shave on Wraiths or Baubles if I'm cutting a land. I think cutting a land is good here. Maybe I cut the 1 Inquisition. Not just because it mismatches, but it's part of it. But in all seriousness, this card is a little worse. And Inquisition in particular can't hit Collected Company. Can't really afford to cut Battle Rage. Sometimes I need it to finish my opponent off when they go wide. These cards are just outstanding, but they are 3 mana to do what a lot of these other cards do at less amounts of mana as well. And I've cut a land. So it's possible I'm supposed to put that Inquisition back and cut a Liliana or Kolaghan's Command. I don't think I could bring myself to cut Liliana in this matchup, so it would at that point be a Kolaghan's Command that I would be cutting, which I don't hate because the other I mean, I'm pretty much always going to kill a guy and make them discard, though. 4 3s. 4 3s in my 17 land situation. I don't know. I guess I'm going to be greedy. But I could see leaving the Inquisition and shaving on one of those 4s. I mean 3s. Shaving on one of the 4 3s, rather. Alright, this looks reasonable. We don't have a threat, but it certainly does the primary game plan of kill all the things forever, and hopefully find a way to threaten you eventually, which we have found a shadow to do that job. I'm going to cycle before I do anything else here, mostly because I don't want to. I do want to draw a 3rd land, rather. So I'm going to kill that bird. I want to slow my opponent down, and I have other removal spells. And I also have nothing else to do with my mana this turn. So we'll go ahead and shut that down. Land tapped bird. Okay, we've drawn a Kolaghan's Command, so I'm direly going to need 3 mana now. Perhaps that is what I'm going to discard, in fact, to this Brutality, since I'm likely just going to kill this bird and check for another thing. Hopefully we can find a land after that. Could also discard this Battle Rage, but I think Battle Rage is just outstanding in this matchup. And if I find a 3rd land, I can already lean pretty heavily on this Liliana. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and discard Kolaghan's Command here. So they have a Pharika. That seems very interesting. Yeah, that seems sweet, actually. That might be difficult for us to get through. I like that tech. Kind of mana intensive for the early stage of the game, but if you get to a point in the game where we're trying to attack with Death Shadows consistently, then we're gonna have some trouble getting through that. So I like that a lot. Battle Rage helps me a little bit in that regard, though. So let's start with our Thoughtseize here, then follow up with the Death Shadow. They can't cast this Vizier, and I think Duskwatch Recruiter is kind of dangerous anyway for me. And Vizier dies to my Liliana, so we'll go ahead and leave them with Vizier. Cast a not very large Death Shadow, a medium-sized Death Shadow. Hope to find some chain of Street Wraiths and fetch lands approaching. Alright, so Bobble, not exactly what we were hoping for here. The problem here is that I'm basically either forcing myself to use Terminate or Battle Rage to get through a snake, which is not a great use of my turn. It's either Graveyard, right? Yeah. There are certainly a lot of creatures to do that with. I could also just say go and hope that the Liliana sets up for doing that, but my opponent's drawing a bird, so Liliana still has something to do. I think I am actually supposed to attack, terminate the Death Touch guy, since I'm not very incentivized to Battle Rage when it's only a 4/4. But I think this is better than doing nothing with my turn when my opponent's light on resources and I just want to put pressure on. But this is exactly what I was talking about, why this card seems like it can be very powerful. Well, that does not take care of Pharika. Fetch land is good. So now I'm going to use my turn on killing bird. And setting up to continue the same plan here of getting through the snakes. So no attack this turn. So if we find a way to pay life, next turn we can decay, next turn we can Battle Rage through the snake to finish my opponent. If we do not, then we can decay through one snake. Opponent attacking me. Guess that makes some sense. They're not really going to do much to my Liliana, and maybe they can try to hope to Just punk me out on life, I suppose. I still have this Vizier in hand that they cannot cast. I guess I want to minus into Street Wraith, right? And then my opponent's just dead. Unless they have Decay or something that they've been sandbagging, but I guess this is a pretty aggressive, kind of all-in way to do this here, but I won't die. I will lose my Death Shadow and Battle Rage, of course, if they have something like a Decay, and then I'll have to try and get them with this follow-up Death Shadow. It'll be a lot harder without my Battle Rage, but they certainly, or they seemingly did not have it last turn. They've already used one, so it would have to have been something they just drew, most likely. So I think it's right to go for it here. So we'll minus. When that ability resolves, we'll return Street Wraith. I'll even main phase it, I think. Fatal Push is actually not bad either. Opponent does go for the snake. And we go for the Battle Rage. Alright, looks like we got there. I will see you all in round 3.